Welcome to Angelo's Tennis. And I want to get into more of the story about how I got to where I am right now in terms of health. And I'm not feeling too good today, so I figured why not? This is a perfect day. Why not make this video today now that I have a full day to think about this, to talk about this. And in 2020, my life changed dramatically. And it kind of was a long time coming. I kind of felt it coming and I didn't know what it was. And what happened was I had anorexia. I had anorexia nervosa, the real anorexia. And I didn't know. I didn't know that I had it. Here's a little bit how it went down. In 2020 or 2017, I closed my club. And I went and I did some things. I got very adventurous, very curious, and I got into, I've always been into health foods, etc. A long time ago, I really started thinking about it. I'd say like somewhere around 18, 19 years old. And I got into vegetarianism. I got real picky. I was a vegan for maybe 4 months. I was vegetarian from like 2018, 2017 to 2020. I was a vegetarian. And I'm not saying that this is the reason why I got anorexia. There's many people who are vegan, vegetarian, but I don't think it was for me. And there's some other problems with that as well, which I'm going to get into. But yeah, I was 100, for most of my life, I was 125 pounds, 5'7", 125 pounds. Stayed the same weight my whole life. And I was one of those people that were obsessed. Even before this, I was obsessed with being skinny. I thought I was the ideal weight. Being skinny was good. I mean, I think at one point I got up. At one point I may have got to 130 when I got into lifting weights when I was in high school, and I think I stopped because I not stopped lifting weights, but I stopped gaining weight because I thought that was too heavy. I can't remember exactly, but I remember just that one time getting closer to 130. But for the most part, I was 125, 5'7". And if you're familiar with BMI, which I wasn't, or I was one of those people that said that BMI is bullshit, that's about a 19 BMI. That's roughly say around 18 and a half is considered medically underweight or at the cusp of being underweight. And then around 25, around 24 and a half, 25 is the cusp of being overweight. So you can see if I was a 19 BMI, I had plenty of room, or anyone who's a 19 BMI has plenty of room to gain weight before they at least medically considered until they would be medically considered overweight. So, but for me, 19 or 20, 125 was it. I used to remember being made fun of to being skinny, and I would call people fat. Or I really wouldn't call them fat to their face, but at least I'd be thinking it. Like, yeah, you're a fat person. You're not in good health. You're not in good shape. And all of this whole perspective changed in 2020. So I had some symptoms of anxiety. Didn't know what they were, and I was told that I had anxiety, etc. I'm not going to get into that, but it wasn't anxiety. It was an eating disorder. It was being chronically underweight. And at that point, I was probably under 120 pounds. So when I went vegetarian, my weight dropped to around 120 pounds. It probably fluctuated. I might have been as low as 115. And I made all these rules. And the rules consisted of I couldn't eat certain foods. I couldn't eat at restaurants. These are some of the big ones. I couldn't eat at restaurants. I made all my food. And that was probably one of the biggest things that hurt me, because if you couldn't find a restaurant or you couldn't eat at a restaurant, you just didn't eat. And that's one of the things with anorexia. When you actually have anorexia, there's a difference between anorexia and just being skinny and picky, etc. But when you actually contract anorexia, you lose your appetite. You can go all day. You can go days without eating. And it doesn't bother you. You don't get hungry. Along with other brain issues, like I said, the anxiety, it does other things to you. And in order to get out of that, which I'm going to get into in this video, in order to get out of that, it's not as simple as just eating more food. It's not, even if you change your psychology and you get over all of this, it's not as simple as, okay, I need to eat more. It's way worse than that. I mean, eating more to get out of this is something that you can't really imagine. So in 2020, I was doing some things and some things happened. I remember I got something that I was really working towards, and the day that I got it, the shit hit the fan, and I knew I was sick. And I was going from hospital to doctor, hospital to hospital, doctor to doctor, and finally somebody told me, because I had no idea what this was, finally a doctor told me, you have anorexia, and you need to eat 1,800 calories a day. And so at that point, I looked up anorexia. I found somebody who actually could help me, and I read her book. I forget what it was called, but she did some other books talking about fear of fat and things like that. And this book really saved me, I could say that. I mean, I had some doctors after that, some psychologists, but they really weren't getting into the details. Kind of like how I get into this channel. They really weren't getting into the details, and this lady got into the details. She had anorexia. She had worked with patients, and she wasn't a doctor, wasn't a psychologist or anything like that, or psychiatrist. And she was a person who had anorexia who was charging $100 an hour to consult with people. So I consulted with her, and she told me the real deal, what I needed to do. And from that day forward, it was about 4 months of eating and living through. I'm not going to get into the details, but just know that those 4 months was the worst hell that you can imagine. And I'm not exaggerating. I've been through some tough times. I'm sure many people watching this have been through some tough times, and I don't mean to demean that, but this is one of the worst experiences I think that you can go through as far as suffering. And in addition to that, it wasn't 1,800 calories a day. It was more like 4,000 calories a day. And this is part of the issue when this happens. A lot of people have trouble. A couple of reasons why people have trouble getting out of this and why it's so dangerous. And one is the psychology of it, that you don't want to get fat, because you could imagine if you have to eat 4,000 calories a day to get out of this pain and suffering as quickly as possible, you would have a problem with that because you don't want to gain weight, or you would just do 2,000 calories a day. And I can tell you that that's not going to cut it, or that's going to extend the suffering. And the other part of this is that it's really hard to gain weight, and it's really besides, even if you don't have that psychology issue, it's really hard to eat 4,000 calories a day. If you've ever tried it or something near that, it's really hard. You can't just eat quote unquote healthy foods. You have to eat unhealthy foods in order to get in a day, because you're talking about eating every 2 hours. Not to mention, when this happened, what actually happened is I couldn't chew. It was hard, and you're not going to really get this. It was hard to chew. So there's that. It was extremely painful to eat, not psychologically, physically painful to eat. So there's that. So imagine having to eat 4,000 calories in a day and then having those two things on top of that. And there's probably more graphic things you can imagine. I'm not going to get into that in this video. But during that 4-month period, I started gaining weight, and I went from 120 pounds in 4 months to 175 pounds. So that's about 50 pounds in 4 months, somewhere between it might have been 5 months, and it was somewhere between 8 and 10 pounds a month. I remember I couldn't gain more than 8 pounds a month. That was right around where it was, 8 pounds a month. And there's no working. There's sitting in bed, and for a number of reasons, even if just the eating alone. And that's an interesting side note when it comes to gaining weight. A lot of people can't gain weight because of couple of these things. One, just from the logistics of it, they're working and they're going to school and they're trying to gain weight. Well, some people might be able to gain 8 pounds. a month. I'm telling you right now, even without this, I couldn't gain 8 pounds a month if I was working and going to school. And then there's the cost of it. 4,000 calories a day, somewhere around there. The cost of it. A lot of people can't afford that. They're living paycheck to paycheck, etc. So, in my opinion, it really comes down to this: having the money, having a plan if you really want to gain weight, etc. Not doing anything. This is your job, to gain weight. That's it. So there's just a little side note there about gaining weight, where a lot of people, I think, can't gain weight, and this is the part of the things that they're avoiding or confronting. So obviously I didn't play tennis. I didn't play tennis for a couple years. I still managed to get on the court, like just kind of like standing there, very messed up, and like hitting the ball occasionally just for fun with a friend of mine. And that kid that I was actually doing that with, I was actually playing with him just recently before this would happen. And I remember he's like a 4.5, climbed his way to 4.5, was 4.0, won his way up to 4.5, like realistically in a USTA league, became a coach, etc. I was playing him and whooping his ass with full-blown anorexia, 120 pounds, like 6'0", 6'1". But the thing is, then he started to, like, we're playing, he would be, this guy would be like picky about courts. So we got on the court that he likes, that it's like kind of like downhill, and he was hitting aces on me. This guy doesn't hit aces on me. And he was like yelling, getting hype, and I couldn't move. I remember, it's not really funny, but like I couldn't move. The ball was coming, I was telling my brain to make me move, and I wouldn't move. I just stood there like a statue, and this guy's acing me. And some more of the times when I started to realize I had a problem. But again, I didn't know what anorexia was. I was going to doctors. They weren't telling me that I had a problem. I remember I had an episode years before that, like an eating disorder episode, and I was laughed at and told that I was one of those types, leaving the hospital with no real diagnosis. And again, remember, I thought I was being healthy doing the things that I was doing. What else could it be? Because otherwise I felt fine. So this is why you see me, if you watch my channel regularly and you watch some of my videos, you see there's videos of me when I'm skinnier. I play tennis differently. I'm much faster. I can tell you that right now. I'm much more athletic. I feel like I can play on the court longer. Like I can't do long rallies right now. I don't play with anyone that does have long rallies, but if I jumped on the court with some of those futures, etc., I'm probably struggling more than I should. Maybe I might be struggling more than the video shows. There's no way I could play a full match like that with those guys without feeling like I'm going to die. Like it's not just the fact that I'm not playing at that level. It's other things as well. I still do not feel like my usual self, especially on the tennis court. So I want to talk more about this gaining weight thing, because what else I had to do is I started looking at football players, because I had to get over this real fast. It was a very dire situation. And I had to get over this very fast. So I started looking at football players and tennis players, but specifically football players. And these guys, 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", they're weighing over 200 pounds. And I started to think, there's not one professional football player, not one, who's under like 190 or 180. Most of them are over 200. And then I started thinking about when I was in high school and why I didn't play football. Well, that would have been the number one reason why I didn't play high school football. I probably would have got hurt if I tried at 125 pounds, because nobody's 125 pounds realistically playing high school football. So that was one kind of mind shift. So then I started looking at the tennis players, and most of them are above a 20 BMI. I think of the professional top 100 I was looking at, there's not one under 20 BMI, and most of them are 21, 22, 23. If you look at Roger Federer and Nadal, they're actually up on the higher end. They're like right around that cusp of overweight, 24, 25 BMI. And that really started to shift my mind. I was like, wow, I've kind of been getting this wrong my whole life. And I had way more room to play when it came to weight, like way more room. And speaking of weight, I remember the first time I hit a tennis ball at 175. It was a serve, the serve specifically. And I mean, I could just see that ball. I could feel it just squish when it hit the ground, and just the action that it had compared to me at 125 pounds. I mean, I could spin the ball, I could curve it, etc. But just the difference between 125 pounds going into a ball and 175 pounds, and I don't think a lot of people really understand that. I mean, I've seen some comments and just different viewpoints, etc. doing this channel. I don't really think people understand how much weight goes into how the ball, like the idea of heavy topspin, etc. Like, I'm not saying you can't hit a heavy ball at 125 pounds, but it's much different at 175. And I even remember playing against guys when I was younger that were more heavy set, even like as a teenager or 20, and they didn't do anything special, but they hit a heavier, bigger ball, and it was hard to deal with. And there's a lot of people that still struggle with this and get this wrong. They'll watch this video and still get it wrong and think that they're 19 BMI or 20 and that's how you should be. You know, you think of all the WTA, they don't even show the weight. They don't show the women's weight on the website. And then some of those bigger players like Haley Baptiste, Taylor Townsend, that been criticized because of their weight, etc. And I don't think these people really understand this. And then on the lower end, the skinny, I remember going to the US Open qualifiers years ago, 15 years ago, and seeing women that you've never heard of. You never saw them play, super skinny. Even then I knew, I was like, wow, she's skinny. That's like, because when I say I was 125 pounds, I didn't look, until I started going down and really having that problem, I didn't look like a skeleton, quote unquote. But these girls looked, you could tell, I was like, I don't even want to watch this. This is bad. I can't mention any names because I don't even know who they are. There might be a couple in the top 100. And this really gets into like the struggle of eating when you're a professional tennis player or just someone who plays tennis a lot, which I want to get into in a future video maybe. Maybe I'll get into it in this video. The problem with playing 5 hours a day and the food that you have to eat, the money you have to pay for that just to keep up. Just to keep your weight up. And I think that's part of the women, having this issue with being too skinny. There could be I can't think of the word right now, a pre-existing condition, like maybe you could say that about me coming into life where you're going to have to deal with this idea of being these you call them eating disorder issues. There could be that they're being born with this, and they're in a situation in life where they have to learn this lesson. They have to work through this. So I remember seeing that on the WTA tour a lot, and this can be like realistically, pragmatically, you can see why it's not just a psychological thing; it's a practical thing as well. And I think you have to question. A lot of people have to question this idea of playing 5 hours a day. Is it real? Is it necessary? Is it really necessary? And if you're playing a certain way that makes it necessary, we have to play these long rallies, and you're always in long rallies, maybe you want to question your style of play. So I want to wrap this up, and a couple more things. I did get in my, so we're talking about timeline here. I started my channel, which I really didn't plan to do this, but I kind of on the fly started this channel about almost a year ago now. So it took about 3 or 4 years to recover from this. And I still don't feel like, well, I know for a fact that I am not my same self as I was then from a health standpoint, and I still consider more time to go through a full recovery. Now, from an eating standpoint, I believe I'm pretty much psychologically fully recovered. But I did get, I'm currently around 165. Like I said, I've been as high as 175. During this 5 years, I went down to as low as 145. And then, not on purpose, through lifting weights and taking protein, trying to build muscle at one point, I got back up to 170. As I said, now I'm around 165. And even if I would tell you this, I have other issues that even if I wanted to lose weight, get down to say a 140, which is considered the ideal weight for my height, it would be a struggle because of these issues, these physical issues that I have. So is it even possible to do that? I'm not sure. So that, just want to mention, that would be why, and maybe I'll put some videos on the screen here, why you would see the skinny Angelo and then the Angelo you see today. And more likely than not, you will not see a change in this image from Angelo on this channel for the reasons I mentioned, unless something else changes. That will stay the same. I could care less what my tennis looks like, or if I can play with quote unquote high level or whatever I joke about. I could care less about that. It's just not that important anymore. So, hope you enjoy this video, and give it a like, subscribe, comment. And if you want to see more of this, I can get into more of the details about the tennis aspect of this. And I probably will, and how important it is.